Good evening, everyone. Hi, everyone. Sorry about the standing room only. This is our first in-person event since 2019. I'm Cecil McCarthy, the director of the journalism program here at Hunter College, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Association of Foreign Correspondents in the U.S. As I said, first time in 3 years, so it's so great to see everyone here in person. Tonight is really an opportunity to celebrate the important work foreign journalists, and indeed all journalists, are doing around the world in one of the most challenging environments for the news industry and press freedom. When Pew Research asked 12,000 journalists to describe their industry in a single word earlier this year, nearly 3/4 of them said something negative, with the most common responses being struggling, chaotic, dying, and declining. Now, the reasons are far-reaching and many. First off, the public's trust in the news industry has never been lower. Another challenge, the internet is flooded with so much misinformation and disinformation and so many conspiracy theories that people can no longer agree on a common set of facts. Many are consuming information in a news silo, which can lead to their own alternate reality. This phenomenon fuels political polarization, culture wars, and sometimes even violence, as we saw on January 6th. The economic model for the news business has also broken down, with many media owners, especially those at the local level, focused too much on profit and not enough on the responsibilities of the fourth estate in a democracy. And finally, press freedom is under attack around the world. A record 533 journalists are imprisoned worldwide today, and 57 were murdered this year. That's up 20% from last year, according to Reporters Without Borders. So it's an enormously challenging and precarious time for the news industry, and thus, I would argue, the perfect time to reimagine the journalism of the future. This means a new approach to both support and reinvigorate the news industry. It's a conversation that I hope we can start tonight and then continue into the future. And here are just a few of the ideas to consider. Number one, retool for the digital age and look at new models for funding news gathering and telling stories. Several newsrooms have now become nonprofits. That seems to be working. Others are looking to grants or lottery money, while others are setting up local news incubators. Another thing to consider, make sure newsrooms reflect the communities they are reporting on so that they can better serve them. This means perhaps tracking the racial and gender makeup of sources. The results can alert reporters to unconscious biases. Newsrooms not only need to recruit women and people of color, but make sure they are groomed for leadership roles and editorial decision-making. Media ownership also needs to diversify because it too is disproportionately dominated by white men. We also need to meet the public's lack of trust and the crisis in confidence head on by proving that journalism is not partisan, aggressively questioning people on both sides of the aisle and investigating many points of view to arrive at the most complete understanding of the facts. Practice journalism without fear or favor to restore the news industry's credibility. And of course, give people the information they need to be free and self-governing, to quote Bill Kovash and Tom Rosenstiel, the authors of The Elements of Journalism. Fact-based journalism that provides context and thoughtful analysis is, yes, old-fashioned, but never out of style. Reporting those essential facts that help people make informed decisions about their lives will make journalism relevant and invaluable again. So here's the good news. Our next generation of journalists and news industry leaders, many of whom are here tonight, are already well equipped for this journalism of the future. And despite these profound challenges, most journalists would never consider any other job. In the same Pew Research survey, Journalists report a high degree of satisfaction and fulfillment in their work, almost 80% saying that they would pursue a career in journalism again. We must never forget what an honor and privilege it is to be a journalist, to serve the public, to hold power to account, to be a guardian of democracy. And it is truly an honor for me to be here to recognize the fine work of our Foreign Press Award recipients, our scholarship winners, the board members who give so generously to the Afpc-Usa of their time, and of course all our partners who support this work with their contributions. In this annual Foreign Press booklet that hopefully you found on your seat, you can find a list of all our supporters and sponsors and all the information about past and current awardees and our work serving the community of foreign press correspondents here in the U.S. We especially want to thank UNESCO, the Knight Foundation, the Heinrich Foundation, Bayer, WeWork, PepsiCo, Microsoft, Toyota, Volkswagen, Procter & Gamble, General Motors, Libra Group, NASDAQ, our own Mitzi Perdue, Fox News, CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, and last but not least, JP Morgan Chase, which is sponsoring our reception tonight. We could not be more grateful for your support. We also have a special guest here tonight that I'd like to mention. As you all know, this has been a challenging time for journalists and press freedom in Ukraine. Yet our courageous colleagues from around the world are there on the ground, sometimes even in the battlefield. And tonight we are joined by Kharkiv-based American journalist Sarah Ashton Cirillo. Can you raise your hand? There she is. In addition to being a journalist, Sarah has enlisted in the armed forces of the Ukraine as a senior medic. She has become, yes. She has become a local legend and spent last week in Washington, D.C., meeting with elected officials and policymakers to discuss the Ukrainian military's needs on behalf of the Ministry of Defense. And when she leaves the U.S., she's going to be returning to the field, to the front lines with her unit. So thank you, Sarah, for your service and for being here tonight with us.
Journalism can take its place in Ukraine as the fourth estate and as one of the pillars of democracy that will be coming out of the rubbles of this conflict. So
thank you. Yeah, let's take a moment of silence. All right. So let's move on now. We want to tell you about some new developments we had this year. The Association and Club of Foreign Press Correspondents has two new offices to use, one in New York and the other in Washington, D.C., thanks to our partnership with WeWork. We so value this partnership, and I would like to invite Errol Williams, WeWork's Senior Vice President for Community and Asset Management for the U.S. and Canada, to say a few words on behalf of WeWork. Errol?
Thank you. All right, to honorary speakers, professional excellence awardees, and scholarship recipients, congratulations. My name is Errol Williams. I am the Senior Vice President of Community and Asset Management for US and Canada with WeWork. And I truly, especially after meeting you all today, and I'm honored to join in celebrating you. I'm also excited to celebrate the Association and Club of Foreign Press Correspondents in the United States for the critical work that you do to create a world that is not only connected and informed, but improving and growing. WeWork is proud to partner with the association and to support your mission by providing inspiring and accessible spaces for this valued work anywhere in the world. You know, as I look at the association's focus on global collaboration and connection, I see great alignment with WeWork's commitment and emphasis on the strength of community. WeWork was founded on the very principle that we are better and stronger when we are working together. Just as journalists share information that unite and inform our society, WeWork attempts to provide workspaces that inspire new ideas and foster a sense of global community. I'm excited to announce that through our partnership, as was mentioned, we have provided 2 spaces that the association can now call home. And these spaces in New York City and Washington, D.C. Will provide a location for the corporate offices, for the monthly educational events, and also be a home base for your members when they visit and have locations to work in anywhere in the world. I think about journalism. Thank you. I think about journalism, and I think over the last 2 years how much the world has changed, and how this association and your members have helped us all understand these changes and what they mean for our future. The resources, the connections, the platform that the association provides for courageous journalism. And I was having a conversation with someone just recently about whether it's Afghanistan and now Ukraine, these places that are not easy places to be in. And so truly, truly courageous journalism and in-depth research that you do are critical elements of a world that actually works. I'm proud to be here as a statement to the association and to your members of the value that WeWork places on this partnership and the work that you do. And my hope is that we can just be a part of the great work that you do as you continue to move us all forward. So once again, truly congratulations. Thank you for all you do. We're honored to be a partner with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Errol. Well, now it is time to start the presentations of our Professional Excellence Awards for 2022. Every year, the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents honors and supports foreign correspondents for their reporting on so many important topics, including global healthcare, COVID-19, technology, the environment and climate change, social justice, business and economics, international and national politics, misinformation, and arts and entertainment. PepsiCo is an invaluable supporter of the Afpc-Usa, and Krista Pilot, the Senior Vice President of Global External Communications and Strategy for PepsiCo, is here to present the first Professional Excellence Award for this year. Krista leads the global communications for PepsiCo and works closely with the Sustainability and Government Affairs team across PepsiCo's 300,000 associates. Krista, welcome.
Thank you, Sissel, and good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all of the winners. I'm really very, very humbled to be here this evening and to speak to you for just a moment. One of the reasons that we at PepsiCo support journalists and the Foreign Press Correspondents Group in specific is we have a shared commitment to transparency and learning, and I'll explain to you what that means. Together, we're launching a new partnership that Sissel mentioned around how can we increase knowledge and information sharing on sustainability. And we together want to raise the awareness on key issues, on things that are really important to PepsiCo, like waste management, like regenerative farming. You may not think about us as farming, but we have a really, really big food business. All the snacks you might know, Frito-Lay, Lay's, Doritos, all those things, they come from corn and they come from oats from Quaker. So we care a lot about regenerative farming, and we care a lot about greenhouse gas reductions and doing our part on climate change mitigation. So PepsiCo has made some bold commitments around what we call our PEP positive sustainable transformation. And with that, we're really committed to transparency and reporting about not only what we're committing to do, but what we've actually done. And that brings me back to journalists. And no group is better at holding folks like PepsiCo and companies like PepsiCo accountable. And sometimes we don't like it, but we understand that that's an important part of the process. And we know that you're going to hold us accountable to the commitments that we've made. And together, we welcome that because it's the only antidote to greenwashing, right? Is transparency, being as honest as you can, and sharing information and sharing the knowledge and sharing the learning. And journalists, you in the room here, you're the ones, you shine the light, right? You sound the alarm. And these are issues, greenhouse gas, climate change, that we need to sound the alarm. So together, let's do this, and we hope that our education sessions can be a start and can be a spark. So with that, it's really my honor to present one of tonight's Professional Excellence Awards to someone that I didn't know, but we've learned tonight that we both lived in the UAE at the same time. I was in Dubai and he was in Abu Dhabi. But I know his publication very well, The National. And while he's here in Washington covering big stories from the US and taking them around the world, I know that publication does an amazing job of really covering the region. And Willie has been a multimedia producer in Abu Dhabi, and it has covered some of the most incredible stories, really, from that region. The fall of ISIS in eastern Syria, the tragic Easter bombings in Sri Lanka, which we all, watched with terror. And he's produced stories for, really top-tier publications, CNN, New York Times, National Geographic, and many others. So with that, Willie Lowry, congratulations, and it's my pleasure to present this award to you tonight.
All right, thank you, Krista and PepsiCo, and congratulations, Willie, on your award. Now it is time to introduce you to Kirit Radia, Director of International News for ABC News, another invaluable supporter of Afpc-Usa, whom I would like to invite to the stage for the presentation of our second Professional Excellence Award of this year.
I've had a bit of a cough, so I'm going to try to get through without, it's not COVID though, I've been taking all the tests. So good evening. My name is Kirit Radia. As I've said, I'm the Director of International News at ABC News, and it's my privilege to be here tonight with so many dear friends and to honor tonight's award winners. Congratulations to all of you. I'm proud, on behalf of everybody at ABC News, to celebrate the role that the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the USA does in facilitating the important work that all of you do. As I find myself saying more often and more often in the newsroom, the world is getting crazier, and we're not immune from that here in the United States. To put it bluntly, we need all of you. In a past life, I also was a foreign correspondent. I was based in Moscow at a time when Putin returned to the Kremlin amid unprecedented protests in the streets of Moscow and across the country. It was the highlight of my career, and I recognized how important it was not just to get the political story right, but to faithfully represent the story of the Russian people and explain their culture and perspective to the American audience. It's that vital role that all of you play here, building bridges and understanding between communities and across cultures, reporting honestly on what is happening here, often with the fresh eyes that are required. The world needs you to report on what's happening here in America and explain it. And uncomfortable though it may be, many times we need you to explain us to ourselves. It was a team from ITN that gave us the earliest and most visceral look inside the Capitol on January 6th. And in this age of disinformation, we need you more than ever to be trusted voices to your audiences around the world. We need to invest in ways to amplify those voices and those trusted voices, even though today's social media makes that harder than ever. And this is where the Afpc-Usa comes in, facilitating the work of journalists around the world and here in the United States and helping train the next generation of storytellers. I want to thank you for all of the hard work that you're doing. And if you're here as a supporter, I want to thank you as well. We need all the allies that we can get. The stakes are higher, have never been higher. I want to salute all of you once again and congratulate tonight's honorees. And it's now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce one of tonight's Professional Excellence Award winners, Kourosh Ziabari, who, where is he? We just had a chance to chat earlier. We had a really nice chat, a really impressive person, a journalist from Iran who works for the Asia Times as a correspondent. His reporting has appeared in a whole host of publications, Foreign Policy, Al Monitor, Middle East Eye. Recently completed a fellowship reporting at the UN, the Dag Hammarskjöld Fellowship for journalists covering the UN. Prior to that, completed a World Press Institute Fellowship with the University of St. Thomas, where he now lives in Minnesota. So we had a wonderful time talking. I hope you get a chance to speak to him. Has done some amazing work reporting on Iran from here and has an amazing story to tell. So congratulations, my friend.
All right, thanks, Kirat, and congratulations, Kourosh, on this honor. It's now time to invite George Svigos, the Executive Director of Communications for GM International, to present awards to foreign correspondents who are both based in Washington, D.C., and have been distinguished with prizes of professional excellence for their reporting. George, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Thanos and Nancy. Lovely to see you again, and to the board of the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents-USA. We're really privileged and humbled as GM to be connected with this incredible organisation. And I know a bunch of sponsors and corporates have got up here to say how humbled we are, and we are, when we meet people that are doing the amazing work that you're all doing. So much. Sorry. So much so that I don't really want to talk about GM tonight, because I think it's kind of floats in the wind a little bit when we actually look at the amazing people that we're honouring tonight. So take it as read. GM's a great company. Buy a GM car. They're getting better. But let's get to what we're really here for. I do want to make the remark that before we get to the two awardees, I do want to recognise and hope that everyone in this room really understands the power of what you do. It is, we get used to having very strong institutions around us, particularly in a safe and corporate environment where we have the safety to fail, we have the safety to take risks, and we have the safety to give our views fearlessly, especially in a place like the US. When I look at some of the work that people are doing in, frankly, terrifying environments where they're taking risks every day, and they're real risks. They're not risks to your career. They're real risks of life and death. And I salute every one of you that is doing that. And even across the full spectrum, whether that is uncovering something that's just not quite right in your community, all the way up to some of the work we've already honoured tonight. So thank you for what you do. It's a tremendous, tremendous service to your communities. Now, if we can get to the awardees and what we're really here for, the first award that I'd like to present is to a journalist by the name of Alessandra Correa, who I've not met yet. So Alessandra, can you? Hi. Okay. I got here a little late, so I'm sorry we haven't met yet. I'm really pleased to introduce Alessandra, most notably because she comes from the country that is the biggest in the operation that I look after for GM. GM is big in Brazil, and I'm happy to say that Alessandra is even bigger in Brazil, judging by what she's achieved here. So over 3 decades, she's been a journalist. She's currently based in DC and is a contributing correspondent for the BBC Brazilian service. Alessandra has spent 10 years as an international correspondent in the US, covering politics, economics, international relations and current affairs. Her stories focus on immigration, criminal justice reform, reproductive rights, economic and social disparities. I mean, there couldn't be any more important issues for someone to be focusing on. She's covered 7 US elections, I think, including the most recent midterms I'd read. and the Haitian earthquake in 2010 as well. And finally, I think you probably cut your teeth on the 2008 global financial crisis. So you're well versed in crisis. If you ever want to cross over to the dark side, let me know. We've got plenty of those in automotive. But I would like to say congratulations, and please come to the stage so you can receive your award for your amazing achievements. The next awardee I have the honour of presenting to is Valeria Massarelli from Venezuela. Valeria, we've not met yet. Can you please? Hi. Oh, you're together. That's wonderful. Valeria, for those who aren't aware, is a journalist at NTN24, which is an international TV network. She's a senior producer for Efecto Naim. Have I pronounced that correct? Yes. It's an Emmy Award-winning news magazine and provides insights into trends shaping the world, which it sounds really broad, and I'm really keen to find out more about the work that you're doing there. And you're also an executive producer of Leaders, which is an interview show telling stories of individuals whose creativity, vision, and leadership are changing the world. And I think now more than ever, to some of the points that the earlier speakers have made, this level of storytelling is what's actually cutting through all the noise, all the disinformation, and all the disruption, and even the conflict that we see, because we can all as humans relate to those stories. So Valeria, congratulations, and it's my pleasure to present this award to you. Nice to meet you. Congratulations.
All right, congratulations, Alessandra and Valeria, and thank you, George. BEAR is one of the most important and longstanding partners and supporters of the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents, and we're very pleased that the head of Integrated Strategic Communications at BEAR, Sue Ann Pentecost, is here to present the last Professional Excellence Award for this year and also the first Scholarship Award. In addition to the Professional Excellence Awards, the Afpc-Usa also provides annual scholarships to foreign journalists who are pursuing master's degree studies here in the U.S. And having served on the scholarship committee, I can tell you that this is an incredibly talented group, and we are very proud of this cohort of scholarship winners this year. So Sue Ann, please come up and present these two awards.
Thank you. BEAR is very honored to be able to join each of you here this evening and to be a proud sponsor of the Association of Foreign Correspondents in the USA and this award ceremony. Congratulations to all of the scholarship award recipients tonight. You really represent the very best and brightest of what the journalism field has to offer, and so we celebrate your achievements. We are especially pleased that through BEAR's support, that foreign journalists have the opportunity to study, work, and live in the United States. We all know that newsrooms are continuing to tighten their budgets, and therefore it's gratifying to be able to see opportunities like those provided by this association and its sponsors so that journalists have the opportunity to follow their passion in their chosen field. As a global life sciences leader, BEAR supports every opportunity to reaffirm our long-standing commitment and support for freedom of the press and freedom of speech. We need journalists who are providing fair, balanced, and accurate coverage on some of the most important issues in today, and we've certainly seen our fair share of those this year. From the war in Ukraine, the reversal of Roe v. Wade, inflation, the continuing COVID-19 pandemic. These journalists and journalists who are also working and reporting in their local communities are bringing to the forefront the most pressing issues, issues that are also important to BEAR, like food security, sustainability, and climate change. Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of our nation's democracy. This year's honorees have demonstrated great bravery and courage in reporting the news at a time when press freedom remains under attack. Just this year, the Committee to Protect Journalists reports that 65 members of the media have been killed, with most of those deaths attributed to journalism. These threats to press freedom must end. It's critical for companies like Bayer to continue to champion fair, balanced, and accurate reporting, and to support those journalists who are working tirelessly to do so. As a company whose vision is health for all, hunger for none, we know firsthand the importance of accurate reporting based on science, data, and insights. So on behalf of Bayer, let me express my heartfelt gratitude to today's scholarship award winners, and congratulations on a job well done. So I'm honored to present the Professional Excellence Awardee, the final one of the evening, to Michaela Haas. I'm looking forward to meeting Michaela after the event. Michaela is a doctorate and award-winning reporter and author of 4 nonfiction books, including most recently, Bouncing Forward, The Art and Science of Cultivating Resilience. She works as a freelance West Coast correspondent for international media, and is a columnist for Süddeutsche Zeitung, and a contributing editor for David Byrne's Reasons to Be Cheerful. In the U.S., Michaela's articles have appeared in the New York Times, Al Jazeera, Rotary International, The Huffington Post, CBS, and numerous other media. And you can find her and learn more at michaelahaas.com. So please come to the stage, Michaela. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm also honored to present the scholarship awardee recipient to Shidan Olawakwinekwan. Shidan is a Nigerian journalist who is pursuing a Master's of Art degree in Business and Economic Reporting at New York University's Carter Journalism Institute. Shidan holds a postgraduate diploma in journalism from the Nigerian Institute of Journalism and a certificate in financial journalism at the Lagos Business School. He was honored in 2021 with the African Fact-Checking Award for uncovering a falsified EU report on the mass abduction of school children in Nigeria. Before joining the wire service, where he covered business and debunked a wide array of claims, ranging from COVID-related misinformation to politicians misusing official data, Shidan worked as a financial journalist for leading the Nigerian daily newspaper Business Daily. His reporting experience and efforts against the weaponization of disinformation and propaganda across young democracies in Africa have been used to budding journalists and to help budding journalists on the continent. From Nigeria to Ghana and then Gambia, Shidan has trained hundreds of journalists in information verification ahead of key elections over the past 5 years. Please join me in welcoming Shidan.
Thank you, Sue-Ann, and congratulations, Shidan and Michaela. These scholarship awards programs are educational programs, and of course the prizes for professional excellence would not have been possible without the generosity and partnership of Toyota. We're very excited to have Ed Lewis, the Director of Public Policy of Toyota Motor North America, with us from DC. Ed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cecil. As she said, I'm from Washington, D.C. Please don't blame me. As bad as the traffic is here, it's always refreshing to get out of the city. I'm honored to be here to congratulate tonight's awardees on behalf of Toyota's 180,000 U.S. employees. I've had a chance to read their bios, meet a few, and can say without question, we are honoring an exceptional group of journalists. Toyota supports the basic principles of a free and fair press, which is why we believe in the association's work. We know that reliable, accurate, unbiased journalism helps protect our basic freedoms and the values we all share. I believe it also coincides with two of the basic pillars of Toyota's business philosophy that define all that we strive to do for society, the environment, and vehicles we produce. Those are respect for people and continuous improvement, better known as Kaizen in Japanese. Now, being here as a former reporter, I'm reminded of my days as a freshman in the School of Journalism at Howard University. I think of my 18-year-old self, usually in bell-bottom jeans, a blue navy pea coat, and an afro about 4 inches high. My classmates and I were eager to become famous reporters like Woodward and Bernstein, who were the heroes of our day. Granted, we didn't have the burden of competition with the avalanche of information exchange on social media platforms that don't always abide by journalism standards. In my studies, I discovered an old adage that made a lasting impression: comfort the afflicted, afflict the comfortable. Despite discovering the fictional origin of the phrase, how it was used, and the fact that it's often misquoted, it stuck with me. But I think it defines the writing, reporting, and investigative work of tonight's awardees. Whether it's providing a voice for the underprivileged and powerless, exposing injustice that harms people of different races, ethnicities, and disabilities, or holding accountable those that threaten our freedoms and the health of our planet, or simply helping ensure dignity is a birthright everyone deserves. These essentials underscore who we are and define the essence of our shared humanity. We know press freedom is under assault in dozens of countries where journalists are under the target of political intimidation or violence when reporting on human rights violations. Tonight's awardees aren't just fearless, talented journalists. They also have a restless curiosity about life. Journalists who write and report the news responsibly not only help us understand the world around us, they remind us of the ideals we cherish to help make a better, brighter world. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to bring up two award winners who are strong journalists who shine a light on what it means to become a journalist. Please welcome Kyla Malig of the Philippines. Kyla is an award-winning multimedia journalist currently earning her master's degree at Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. At the age of 24, she became a 4-time winner of the Society of Publishers Asia Awards for Editorial Excellence, clearly an overachiever. After receiving an award for her piece on the Philippine drug war's orphan children, she went on to work with the Washington Post, CNN, and the Philippines' biggest news organization, GMA Network. Please join me in honoring Kyla. Our next scholarship winner is Diana Lee, who is a New York-based financial journalist from China, currently studying journalism at NYU and finance at NYU Stern School of Business. She interned at the Beijing Bureau of the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and Reuters, as well as the Bloomberg News in New York, where she has secured a full-time job. Please join me in congratulating Diana.
Thank you so much, Ed, and congratulations to Kyla and Diana. Procter & Gamble is another longstanding supporter of the Afpc-Usa, and Damon Jones is here tonight, and we're so grateful for your support and participation, Damon, and welcome you up here now for the presentation of 2 additional scholarship awards.
Thank you, Sissel. Good evening, everyone. Not sure if anyone is out there, so let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. All righty. On behalf of Procter & Gamble, I'd like to congratulate both our scholarship recipients as well as our professional prize awardees. The work you do is important. It's inspiring and it's ever critical to society at large and to, frankly, each of us as individuals. The images you put out into the world, the stories you tell, the images, the words have the power to affect change, to document history as it is, not necessarily as we want it to be, and uncover important stories about the issues that impact our lives. You know, at P&G, we oftentimes talk about the role that we play as a global corporate citizen and like to what we call being a force for good and a force for growth. But each of you are an important part of that equation, holding us, as others have said, accountable to the commitments that we make, so we thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the association and its leadership for your role in broadening the career paths, creating opportunities for the next generation of journalists, lifting them up and giving them the tools that they need to be successful, and again, playing a vital role in telling the stories that the world needs to hear. As a company that's present in more than 80 countries around the world, in your living rooms, in your kitchens, in your bathrooms, everywhere. If we're not in any of those rooms, we'll work on getting into those rooms. You know, the work that you did, I say this, is inspiring and critical to society. You help us see ourselves and you help us see each other. And a part of that is the authentic stories that you tell. The authentic stories that reflect the lived experiences of people all around the world. So I know that as journalists representing global media, you value that diversity, not just of thought, but of culture, and reflect the diversity of voices that we need to have told in the world. So I commend you for those efforts. I'm honored tonight to present scholarship awards to 2 amazing individuals who share a passion for storytelling and using their gifts to help the world become a better place. So first, I'd like to recognize Sean Shatith of India for his work. Sean, he's reporting. Sean, where are you at? There you go. Come on up. Sean's reporting seeks to unearth the hidden and apparent structures of caste-based discrimination, which is an ancient Hindu belief that divides people into hierarchical categories determined by birth that creates social classes. These social classes define what jobs they can have, what duties and privileges they can are afforded in society. And Sean's reporting explores the system's impact on various aspects of Indian society, including housing, labor, healthcare, and education. As an oppressed caste journalist working in upper caste-dominated Indian newsrooms, he believes that reporting on caste needs to acknowledge the humanity and dignity of the victims and survivors without resorting to sensationalism and tokenism. He aims to highlight the role of the perpetrators. Thank you, Sean, for shining a light on these important issues. I look forward to following your career as you continue to do more great work, educating us all on the opportunities that we have in the world. Thank you very much. The next award recipient tonight is Yu-Cheng Tang. Yu-Cheng, please come on up. Yu-Cheng had never left his small region in eastern China where he was born before he went to Shanghai to study journalism. During his university years, he saw the diversity and inequality of the world for the first time, meeting all kinds of people as an intern for several publications, including the New York Times, where he profiled a group of Chinese high schoolers who produced a film exploring transgender identity. Yu-Cheng has a passion for stories like this that are at the intersection of technology, science, humanity, and stories about Asian immigrants in the U.S. Yu-Chung, I'm excited to see all that you will do in telling stories that help us see ourselves and see the world as it is. Congratulations. I'll close by saying I got my journalism degree, but never practiced as a journalist. But the respect that we have for your courage, for your ability to speak truth to power, and for the truth that you just shine a light on every single day is something that we are in awe of and that we respect more often than we share. So thank you to all that do this work and all who aspire to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon, and congratulations to Sean and Yu-Chung Tang. Because of a error at the printing press, unfortunately his page was left out of our program, so apologies for that. But I can tell you, having read his complete portfolio, he's an incredible reporter, showing so much courage and incredible breadth in his reporting. He can do a feature story, an investigative piece, and his writing is just lyrical. So congratulations and apologies. All right, Volkswagen Group of America and its Senior Vice President and Chief Communications Officer, Cameron Batten, have been supporting our work, and we are grateful to partner with them because with their help, we can really amplify our impact. Cameron, the stage is yours.
Thank you, everyone. It's our honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Nancy and Thanos, for having us here, and congratulations to all of our award winners and scholarship winners. I will tell you that Volkswagen believes in great storytelling, and you may know us for legendary advertising, but I would say we have an equally strong communications and press corps team who work day in and day out, most of them former journalists and believe in the freedom of speech and telling great stories. It is how we have restored trust in our company over the past decade in the United States, and we firmly believe in fair and honest reporting. I was looking through the code of ethics from the association, and it was strikingly similar to the way even our own department operates. They make it very clear what is news and what is very clear advertising in a world where that is increasingly blurring. So for that, I will say we will always support your voice, we will always support your storytelling, and congratulations on all of your success. I will say also, as someone who's worked and lived abroad, it is a very wildly adventurous time for you, a very exciting time, and a very scary time. And so the courage that it takes to report in foreign environments, to tell your truth, speak your truth in an environment where your future is always not certain, is something that we commend you for. I would like to honor the two awardees tonight, Pete McKenzie from New Zealand. Pete is an award-winning journalist based in New York. He writes for the New York Times, The Guardian, New Zealand magazines like North and South, and New Zealand Geographic. He's a qualified attorney and previously served as an infantry officer in New Zealand's Army Reserve. He is also a Fulbright scholarship to study Master in Global Politics at Columbia Journalism School. Congratulations, Pete. Our next awardee is Anna Westerberg. Anna? Hi. Anna has practiced and studied journalism in 3 different countries with an internship in Costa Rica, a bachelor's degree from the City University of London, and as a radio broadcast journalist with public service in her home country of Sweden. As a local editor at a newspaper in northern Sweden, a vast, mostly rural area, I'm from a rural area, where people felt sidelined, marginalized, and forgotten by their government and the media, she came to see her role partly as shouldering the responsibility to restore the reader's trust by continuously lifting the concerns crucial for their quality of life. My mother was a local reporter, a journalist, followed court briefings all the time, and also reported on rural stories, so I very much identify with your work. She lives to tell stories, and she's now a journalist to fight disinformation and write stories that connects the divides in society. Join me in congratulating Anna.
Thank you, Cameron, and congratulations to Anna and Pete. And let's give one more round of applause to all our winners today. So again, in your little program here, all the statements from our scholarship and professional excellence awardees can be seen and also accessed online on our YouTube page. So as you can see tonight, we are committed to providing the mentorship and support that these awardees need to achieve their potential in the news industry. Now, though, it is time for the presentation of the annual Foreign Press Awards. In your booklet, you'll find all the past Foreign Press awardees, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, CNN's Christiane Amanpour, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield, and many others who we have honored for their lifetime contributions to support excellence in journalism, freedom of the press, and the essential role journalists play as the cornerstone of our democracy. For the presentation of this year's Foreign Press Awards, I'd like to welcome Chairwoman of the Association and Club of Foreign Press Correspondents, Nancy Prager-Camel.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege as chairperson of the board of the Association of Foreign Correspondents to thank you all for your presence today at another landmark Foreign Press Award ceremony. After the challenging years of COVID, it's such a pleasure to stand before you and greet you in person. That being said, the state of our journalist and correspondent community, as evidenced this evening, continues to be powerful and healthy. Our noted awardees illustrate all the best in the high standards that we seek, success in leadership and in communication. These honored recipients define directly or indirectly why the community of foreign correspondents that the Afpc-Usa serves here in the United States is so crucial for all of us as engaged citizens in our own societies. We thank you all for being here and for recognizing our presence in celebrating these accomplishments. The 2022 Foreign Press Awards are our annual opportunity to congratulate personalities whose public presence, career, and life have contributed to our cause of informing and educating the public about the essential role foreign journalists and journalists in general play here in the United States and around the globe. This year, our 3 Foreign Press awardees personify the unwavering commitment to keep striving for excellence in communication and elevate sustainable journalism as a successful business model. Thank you. We will be watching a short video, I believe, of Chuck Todd.
Hello, everybody. Wow. First of all, thank you, Nancy. Thank you to the entire Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the United States for this honor. I'm really sorry I can't be there tonight. It was not my intention. I was wanting to be there to celebrate with you, but I am truly honored to share this moment with other incredible honorees. Congratulations on your recognition this evening as well. You know, every time I'm introduced somewhere, the people always bring up the fact that Meet the Press is the longest running program on television. Not longest running news program or anything else, right? It's the longest running television show on earth. And I always think to myself, I better not be the last moderator of Meet the Press. Seriously, though, we did just have a chance to celebrate 75 years of this program, and I'm tremendously honored to be the custodian in this current iteration of Meet the Press. At one point or another, all of us who've had the chance to sit in this moderator chair every Sunday have had to contend with really defining questions about the role of our brand of journalism. And I want to briefly touch on one of those questions, because I think it's become especially poignant for the international community and America's role in it. And it's also urgent for shows like ours as we try to put international events in context for viewers, a core piece of our work throughout the program's long history. It's to do with this debate about lending airtime or ink to apparently objectionable individuals, polarizing figures half the country disagrees with, or maybe even the whole country or half the world. But in a time of immense media skepticism, I'm constantly reminded of our purpose here. We don't exist to tell people what they want to hear. We exist, all of us in this room, to tell people what they need to hear. We're the reporters. And sometimes those objectionable individuals, whether we like it or not, they hold power to make an immense difference in our lives and the lives of our audience. Such power ought to be scrutinized. It needs to be scrutinized, no matter the ideology. There's a former Meet the Press executive producer who would like to put it this way when asked why we put so-and-so on the show, a dictator, a tyrant, a racist. And it's that sometimes sunlight is the best disinfectant. Only by shining sunlight on apparent wrongdoing or injustice or a lack of accountability in our institutions, only by doing that, and only by having the conversation about the things that might hold the potential to make or break our systems of government, can we make the stakes real and apparent to the people that need to know. Sweeping it under the rug does nothing. Retreating to our corners, hearing only what we want to hear, and speaking only to those that agree with us does nothing as well. But encouraging viewers to be a little uncomfortable for 5 or 10 minutes every Sunday, I hope somebody disagrees with something they heard every week, or I'm not doing my job. In the pursuit of spurring thought, encouraging political engagement and discourse, that's what we're doing here. So in an age where political problems have no boundaries, where climate change and human rights and migration and pandemics know no geographical borders, that's as important as ever, both on Meet the Press and for journalists that the world over, covering issues and challenges far beyond the borders of their home countries. So look, I'm incredibly inspired by the work that the people in this room put in every single day to furthering that mission. There is nothing tougher than covering a war at times, being in a hot spot anywhere around this world. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you for this recognition this evening. And in the words of my late mentor, let's go get him.
I'm slightly out of context because, of course, unfortunately, Mr. Todd was not able to get here this evening, and we expected him. So I'm just going to tell you, of course, that he is the host of the TV's longest-running continuous affairs program, Meet the Press, which debuted in 1947. So it continues to be relevant today, which is quite amazing. It's due in large part to the experienced contextual journalism of Chuck Todd, whose nuanced conversation with newsmakers illustrates the finely honed power of communication. Mr. Todd's also an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins University and author of books on former President Obama. However, on a lighter note, I thought amusing to tell you that Chuck Todd picks NFL football games for Tony Kornheiser on a podcast, and each week he is pitted against Reginald, a monkey, who also picks the NFL games. So I thought it a little levity to see who has the better record. At any rate, unfortunately, Chuck could not get up from DC, but it is a pleasure and an honor to stand here tonight and present our first honorary Foreign Press awardee of 2022 to Mr. Todd, and it will be accepted by Bob Raleigh, one of our board members.
It's heavy.
The only thing I'd add is that I'm one of the longest running viewers of Meet the Press and a big fan of Chuck's. I don't know him, so I'm humbled and honored to accept this on his behalf and all his viewers.
Thank you. Okay. Previously, in my presentation of the Foreign Press Award to Chuck Todd, I mentioned the importance of sustainability in communication in terms of keeping journalism as a profession that can adjust to the new norms of society and the economy. Brad Smith, Microsoft's vice chair and president, is renowned for his inspirational leadership, his visionary thinking, his empathy, and courage for always staying relevant to the future, but most important, for his corporate social responsibility on behalf of Microsoft. A true avant-garde leader, Brad Smith pushed for diversity, calling for executive bonuses dependent on Microsoft's increasing employment of minorities and committing pro bono hours for immigrants. When the goals were not met in 2008, Microsoft executives donated their bonuses to charity. Every year since then, the diversity goals were met. So well done. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to recognize Mr. Brad Smith as a de facto ambassador for the technology industry at large and Foreign Press Awardee for 2022. Mr. Brad Smith, congratulations.
Brad Smith, because it is very well expected, and then we are going to present the award to Benjamin Hall for the excellence in journalism. Brad, please join us. First of all, when I was preparing to have this conversation with you, I must say that I had been very stressed for the reason that you've been being interviewed by many prominent colleagues, journalists, international journalists, and because you have been managing a corporation which is the leading corporation in the tech industry, and at this stage here behind us, you cannot see, it is the President Roosevelt's figure, and this connects the option of leadership of the past and the leadership of the modern era, because you are a leader in the tech industry. And I would like to ask you, first of all, how do you define the leadership? What do you define as the excellence in leadership in the industry that you are leading? But also, how do you define leadership in journalism as a viewer, as a citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you all, and it's just wonderful to be here. I'm such a passionate believer in what you all do, and it's so exciting, especially to see the next generation of journalists, whether you're still in school or just out here in the United States before your work in other parts around the world. You know, I think the essence of leadership in our industry, has a lot of elements that are shared in leadership around the world. You're really called on, I think, more than anything else, to really try to adapt to a changing world. It always starts, in my view, by taking stock of how the world is changing, which is one of the many reasons I'm so passionate about the role of journalism. You then have to ask what it means for what you are trying to do in the world, whether it's as an individual or the leader of a company. In our case, our company, like many, is defined by a mission. We exist for a reason. It's fundamentally to create technology that hopefully helps other people do more as an organization or an individual. And then you have to formulate a vision together with other people. If it's only your own, it's not really very relevant. And then you have to execute on it. And when you just think about that, it all starts fundamentally, in my view, with the same trait that defines journalism itself: curiosity. You have to start by thinking about how the world is changing. And in my view, one of the things I love about journalism and the opportunity for people to be journalists is fundamentally, especially people who say go to a school of journalism, as my chief of staff who's here today did before she embarked on a career in technology. Think about what you are trained to do. You're trained to be curious. You're trained in how to ask questions. You're trained in how to go out and find information, including from other people, from sources. You're trained to write well, and you're trained to move quickly. Take those 5 traits. I would argue that they are perhaps the 5 most important traits in the history of humanity. because they are at the foundation of everything that we do, whether you work in the tech sector or whether you write for a newspaper or another press organization, or whether you try to do anything else in life. And so for me, that's one of the things that I'm excited about the opportunity to do every day, and it was one of the reasons I was frankly excited to be here with you all this evening.
Thank you for the honor for being with us here tonight, and thank you for clarifying these principles about what defines the leadership in modern ages. I would like to, because you mentioned about the changing era that we are living in, what has been the major, you feel, threats in journalism in our modern society? And what do you see as threats today compared to 20 years ago? And what do you see as threats in 10 years from now? Because we cannot talk about such a long term.
I think there's three threats that one really has to worry a lot about for journalists. It's physical safety. You heard about that. You know, it is a profession where people sometimes put their life at risk. It's personal liberty. Yeah, I think, look at Maria Ressa. There's a reason that the Nobel Peace Prize went to a journalist in the Philippines who is in the Philippines now, awaiting to find out what the new government will do. And then there's economic well-being. I think the biggest change in the last 20 years fundamentally concerns the economic well-being of journalists. You go back to when Chuck Todd started, the late 1940s. Well, if you look at the data from, he didn't start, I should say. Meet the Press started. I'm glad he's not here to hear that. Don't tell him. Whoever accepted the award, don't share that. But Pew Research started really assembling data about the financial health of newspapers in the United States in 1956. And what's interesting is every year from 1956 to the year 2000, revenue for newspapers in the United States increased. It peaked in the year 2000. And every year since, revenue for newspapers has fallen. But it's actually starker than just peaking and falling. The peak revenue year, 2000, had about $60 billion coming into newspapers in the country. Now, of that, about $50 billion was advertising, and about $10 billion was circulation, selling individual papers or getting subscriptions. In 2020, the most recent year, that 60 had become 20. It fell by 2/3. Why did it fall? Well, the circulation was pretty constant. 10 became 11. Didn't keep pace with inflation, but it went up slightly. But $50 billion in advertising revenue for newspapers literally fell to below 10. And that's in part because things like classified ads went away. But frankly, and this is where it's awkward to accept an award from a press association, fundamentally, the advertising revenue that went to newspapers has gone to tech companies instead. Yeah, a couple of tech companies in particular. And that is a terribly difficult situation to address. Fundamentally, the biggest problem that I think the press in the United States has, and in some other countries, not to the same degree, I spent enough time in other countries to appreciate some of the similarities and differences, is of course what you have to do is you cut costs. And you start by cutting distribution, and the technology has made some of this possible. You don't need as many printing presses. You don't need trucks and truck drivers to deliver as many newspapers. No longer is there a cost structure that, for better and in challenging ways, paid pensions to people who were no longer working. But the real problem is that it has forced newspapers, in my view, to cut the money paid to journalists. So what was a group of 75,000 people working in newsrooms in 2000 has become half of that. And even worse than that is both the declining wages in real terms and the closure of newspapers entirely. And if you look now at just a domestic number in the United States, roughly half of our 3,000 counties are down to one newspaper, and 200 counties have no newspaper at all. So what do we hope we can do for the future? I think we've got to find a way to tap into better and new sources of revenue. There's no way to cut your costs further to come out of this. And so the next decade, let's hope we can innovate. Let's hope that we can tap into more public sources of revenue, because I think journalism is worthy of public support and in a much broader way than is currently found across the United States. Let's hope we can bring advertising revenue back to newspapers in ways that don't exist right now. Let's hope we can find new ways to distribute content and bring more revenue to more people. All of that, I think, has to be our great quest. And the one other thing I'll say, one thing I've learned not from working at Microsoft, but from being on the board of directors for almost 8 years now at Netflix, is that gives me a little bit of hope. Just because it's easy to forget that around the year 2000, there were a lot of people that were worried that revenue would shrink for people who produce films, who produce documentaries, who produced any kind of audio-visual content. And yet there has been a resurgence there, streaming, new forms of distribution, and it's almost a golden age now, a new golden age for the production of that kind of content. So I start by saying we can't give up. We have to be resourceful. We have to approach some new public policies. But this is one of the most important problems, in my view, in this country and around the world that we need to focus on solving.
What would you respond to the question or the challenge that someone may bring up, saying one of the reasons for the decline, especially in the business model in journalism, is technology, and technology meaning the bad sides of technology, which one of them is the spread of misinformation, disinformation. You had recently a report about how Russian propaganda has been used as a tool to achieve its goals in Ukraine. What's your view and position on that?
I think this is another huge part of a big problem we have to solve. And I actually think it's a great story for any of you who come here this evening going, what are some good stories I can pursue? Look, one of the biggest public funders of, we'll call it, publication of information in the world today is the Russian government. Through the Russian military, through the GRU, through publicly owned, government-owned sources, but through a whole ecosystem. And unfortunately, their definition of information is to combine some things which may be true with other things that are knowingly false. And how do they do this? Well, I think one of the more interesting examples is one that comes from the war in Ukraine. It shows how the Russians work. Just as they pre-position software code for a malware attack, they pre-position false narratives for a disinformation, or as we call it, a cyber influence operation attack. So last November, the Russians decided that they would invade Ukraine. They prepared tanks, they prepared missiles, they prepared troops, and they sent narratives into battle as well. If you go to November 29th last year, you will see uploaded onto YouTube the pre-positioning of a narrative. It was recorded by an American expat who lives in Moscow, who works with the Russian government, and who has a video cast a few days a week. And so on November 29th, he put up on YouTube a story that I will call, Did You Know? Did you know, he said, that the Pentagon has bioweapons labs in Ukraine? And the Russians did with that exactly what they do when they pre-plant malware. They just put it there and left it and paid no attention to it. But on February 24th, the same day the tanks rolled across the Ukrainian border, they sent that story literally into the battle. RT.com, Sputnik, and a dozen sites that look like newspapers if you don't live in Russia. They look like newspapers if you live in the United States or other countries. All took that same story and simultaneously put it out and said, did you know that last year it was established that there are these bioweapons labs in Ukraine? And then they used their ability to manipulate social media, to manage algorithms, to use advertising, to fan the flames of that story and spread it around the world. And this is something they do on a repeated basis. They've done it with vaccines. The Russians do this in 23 languages, and in 22 of those 23 languages, they said, you should not get a vaccine. But in the 23rd language, Russian, they told every Russian speaker, you need to go get a vaccine. And where they do this especially well, unfortunately, is across the Western Hemisphere, as well as in Africa and other parts of the global South, and in Spanish. Do you know what the most consumed network is in Latin America? It's not CNN Espanol. It's RT.com. And the people of Latin America, the Spanish speakers of the United States, are not aware that RT is the latest incarnation of the TASS news agency. It is run by the Russian government. And so how do we address this? You all need to help address this. There's many things we need to do, but much of it, as always, whenever there's a problem in the world, turns on journalists who can get the story out.
We talk about a little bit misinformation, propaganda. One of the major initiatives of the board members for next year is protection of journalism in the field of press freedom. What is the recipe, if there is a recipe, on behalf of the civil society stakeholders, leaders in the corporate environment, in the private sector, to do something in a unified way, in a unified voice, to protect journalists? Because when we talk about protection, I assume you agree, we're not talking only about safety, we're talking about several other methods of attacking journalists, especially in countries with authoritarian regimes.
I think that part of the answer comes down to protecting the liberty of journalists as well as other, say, character attacks or threats on the safety and freedom of journalists. I'm a huge supporter and fan of one effort in particular that I think has been growing and that can continue to spread and has a lot of potential to attract a more unified level of philanthropic and corporate support. And that is specifically I'll say the strategies, that have really been pioneered, in my view, by Amal Clooney and Amal and George Clooney and the Clooney Foundation for Justice. And I'm a board member and work with Amal and George. And we at Microsoft have really had a chance to take technology and use it as a tool for Amal and the Clooney Foundation to better protect journalists. How do we do that? Well, when there is a trial of a journalist, there is now a monitor in the courtroom. It's a local person. The person is trained. It doesn't have to be a lawyer, and it's actually best if the person is a little anonymous to the government people who may be in the courtroom. And that monitor is trained in how to track what is happening in the trial, how to obtain the information, and then every day, that data is uploaded to the cloud using a program that we helped create at Microsoft called TrialWatch. The information gets out of the country, it gets into the cloud, and then you have judicial experts in other countries that can evaluate it and assess whether this trial is fair. And that does two things. One is it can shine a light in individual cases and put pressure on a judge or a prosecutor or a government to know that the world is watching. The great cause of journalism everywhere, to ensure that the world is watching. But the other thing that it can do, and this is where I think it has such enormous opportunity to grow and scale, is as one can do this with more cases and in more countries, you start to develop the ability to measure and better monitor on a national basis whether journalists really enjoy press freedom. And that's not going to stop authoritarian governments from acting in authoritarian ways. But interestingly, some authoritarian countries are nonetheless sensitive to public criticism. Look at the story in China just in the last month. It's something that we sometimes see in other settings when it comes to cybersecurity issues and the like in China. And so I won't claim for a moment that it will provide all the answers, but I think that they are the fundamental building blocks for the progress that needs to come.
Tonight you saw the new generation of journalists, scholarship awardees, established foreign correspondents as professional excellence awardees. What would you like to share as a message to all of them? And how would you evaluate the excellence in journalism as a citizen and as a leader?
Well, let me start with the second part. You know, the truth is whenever you're the subject of news coverage, you usually live in a perpetual state of frustration. Love what you do, I just wish you were nicer to me. Mostly, though, I have to say every day I appreciate the quality of news coverage. I appreciate the efforts that people make to be fair. I appreciate the tight deadlines that people work under. And frankly, I appreciate it when you come to a place like this because there's a lot of jobs that you can do from your house. But if you really want to get people to talk to you, you have to go build some relationships. So what you do, you know, on an individual and collective basis is just, you know, so valuable. At the end of the day, especially for the democracies of the world, you really are the fourth estate. You know, that phrase was coined in the earlier years of the British Parliament. The sense was that the other three estates were there, but the fourth estate was in the gallery watching them all. And I think we've never had a healthy democracy since without healthy journalism, without the public's ability to know and to take stock and even debate what's true and what's not based on the kind of reporting you all offer. The future's lost, in my view, and the future needs you. I hope we can create a future where you can not only do great things, but also, frankly, earn a better living. I'd love to see salaries for journalists rise. But I will say every day, you should feel that you're not only honing great skills that, as you have heard from other speakers, can take you to all other sorts of walks of life as well. But at the end of the day, what you do today, what you do when you write for a newspaper or any other media outlet is just indispensable to the state of democracy and the state of humanity around the world. And it's something that should be applauded every day, even if it's only once a year that an event like this takes place.
Thank you so much. Before we conclude the conversation, I could not wrap up this conversation without asking a question which is very relevant to the future generation of everyone, every human being, the future of artificial intelligence. Do you feel that journalists and journalism is in threat because of artificial intelligence? And also in general, how the human society, the structure of our human society will be impacted in the next decades?
Well, the first thing I would say is I think artificial intelligence, like almost every technology, is going to bring new opportunities and new challenges. And I think it's going to be one of the big stories of 2023, in all honesty. When you sit where I see and you talk to engineers and you see the technology that is going to be in the market in the next year, the first thing I would say is in some ways, we are seeing AI with the ability in 2023 to do things that we didn't think we would see until 2033. So the pace of AI development is absolutely accelerating. That is exciting, it is exhilarating, and there will be times when it will be nerve-wracking. Now, what will it mean for journalists? Well, in some ways, it will make your lives easier because when you're researching, especially for, I'll call it, contextual information, what may take you a couple of hours today to sort of fill out your understanding of a problem, you may be able to do in 10 or 20 minutes. That's a great thing. If you need a little help with your editing, I think you're going to find in the next year that a machine can actually help you with your editing. Now, I don't think that's entirely good, but let's be honest, in a world where there are fewer editors than there used to be, that's not the worst thing to have happen. You'll have to worry about it a little bit because some people may think they don't need a journalist to tell them what to do. They can go to a machine instead. But this is the saving grace I'll share with all of you. AI does an amazing job at analyzing the world's information, but it never has an original thought. It summarizes the knowledge that already exists. It pulls together the data that has already been published. So how will you excel as a journalist? You'll report the news that hasn't yet been reported. You'll see patterns that no machine will ever detect because no one has ever thought about connecting the dots in that way before. And so if you're a less than energetic human being, yeah, this is probably something that may not be great for your future, but I'll tell you, if you go back to what you're trained to be great at in journalism school, to be curious, to ask questions, to find original ideas, to report the news that is happening now that no one has reported before, you'll be better because you'll be able to use AI as a tool to help you do everything else. It will challenge us all, including challenge our thinking. But I think it's that mindset that will probably prove most beneficial.
Brad Smith, thank you so much.
Thank you, Thanos and Brad, for that. Susan Tirani is on stage now to introduce Benjamin Hall's Foreign Press Award. Thanks, Susan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Tehrani. I'm the vice president of the organization. First, let's take a look at a short video from Ben's work.
In every direction, the Taliban are in control. Night after night, they launch attacks on police checkpoints. You can see here the bullet holes from a recent attack. There is no security here. There is no peace here.
Take it home with you, but feel it because they were here for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank
you again.
This is the very apartment in which Mohammed Boulel lived. It may well be the apartment in which he planned his brutal attack. All we know is that last Monday he rented a truck, and on Thursday he slaughtered 84 people on the promenade of Nice.
This cathedral is one of the great symbols of Barcelona. It was also one of the main targets for the terror cell, who were hoping to blow it up. These guys are up here trying to pick off these ISIS fighters. The sound of US jets is constantly overhead, and that has been a decisive factor in pushing them back. Thousands of men, women and children have just come out of the desert, fleeing the besieged fighting nearby. This is Benjamin Hall inside an ISIS prison in northern Syria. Join us to hear the stories of these fighters. About 30 fighters have come back from the front lines over the last few weeks, bearing these mysterious burns all over their bodies. This guy's Syrian government, very happy to see us, but I'm not sure which side we're on now. We can see it, a Turkish tank just up at the next hamlet. Their forces are clearly coming towards us. That's where all the gun battles have been as well. It's not going to be safe, I think, for us to go any further. You can hear.
We keep missing like this. I know we do.
I've watched your convoy storm past cars on a few occasions and jumped out and waved.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
Many people wondered how ISIS was able to withstand and hide from the US-led coalition airstrikes. Well, this is how.
Benjamin Hall is Fox News Channel's State Department correspondent. Since joining the network in 2015, he has covered many of the most urgent breaking news stories of our time, from the front lines in Iraq and Syria during the battle against ISIS to combat zones in Gaza and Afghanistan. Over the course of his career, including as a war correspondent in the Middle East and Africa, he has covered elections in numerous countries and interviewed presidents, prime ministers, foreign ministers, U.S. commanders, and ISIS prisoners. Prior to joining Fox News Channel, his writing appeared in the New York Times, Sunday Times, BBC, the London Times, and Esquire, among other publications. Benjamin's career has been a testament to bravery in pursuit of truth. He is embedded with rebel and regime troops alike, reporting from behind enemy lines in Libya, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, as well as Egypt, Haiti, and Iran. In 2015, he published his fascinating book, Inside ISIS: The Brutal Rise of a Terrorist Army. In March of this year, Benjamin was wounded by incoming fire outside of Kyiv while reporting on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The same attack claimed the lives of 2 fellow journalists, Fox News photojournalist Pierre Zakrzewski and Ukrainian journalist Oleksandra Sasha Kuvshinova. Benjamin was rescued from the war zone and would spend 3 months at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, undergoing multiple surgeries before reuniting with his wife and 3 daughters. Exactly 6 months after that attack, Benjamin made a surprise virtual appearance at a Fox News media employee town hall. Ever the optimist, he focused his remarks on the heroes who helped save his life and reunite him with his family. As he put it, it's a story not really of tragedy, but one of goodwill. It's that sense of empathy and optimism that has defined Ben's work, shining a light on the human toll of war and countless stories of individual heroism. His body of work represents the best of our profession, a high calling that shines a light on atrocity, speaks truth to power, and gives voice to those who would otherwise not be heard. Viewers and readers around the globe have relied on his indispensable reporting in Ukraine and elsewhere. And I speak for all of us when I say we can't wait to see him back on the air soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Hall.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this award tonight. I do think that this is not just an award for myself, it is an award for Pierre and for Sasha, who both died during that attack, and also for every other war correspondent who's been injured or killed covering conflicts. And despite the attack, despite what happened to us, I think it is essential that people continue telling the news, telling the stories from war. I think that that's the only way we truly get to understand the atrocities, the disasters, and the horror that's happening out there. And only then, perhaps, can good things, can change come from it. And this is also about celebrating the people who came in to get me and to save me, the people who put me back together, who built me despite all my injuries. And when I look at all those people and what they did, I'm reminded of how much good there is in the world. There was evil there in Ukraine that hurt so many people, but there is good, and there is more good than there is evil, and we have to continue trying to fight to get that news out as well. People are knocked down. I myself was knocked down, but I know for certain now that you can pick yourself up again and you can try even harder to do what is so important, to keep telling the truth, to keep telling the stories, and encouraging everyone else to do the same. Many thanks.
Accepting this award on behalf of Benjamin is President and Executive Editor of Fox News Media, Mr. Jay Wallace.
Thank you very much. Couldn't have said any of that any better. Your words were fantastic. And Ben, he makes it look so effortless. If you watch his reporting and then you watched him right there, I mean, that's the magic of Ben. So I really, hats off to him. I spoke with him last night. Ben sends his best wishes. He hopes to be here next year. His recovery is going amazingly well. But just a reminder to you young journalists, these are hard jobs. And I hope you never have to receive a call like a couple of us received back in March. You know, and again, just a reminder, the divisions that go on in this country, I do have to thank this government. I have to thank Secretary Austin, John Kirby, Anthony Blinken. If it wasn't for them, basically just to give you a little more context to this, and I'll keep these remarks short, but once Ben was injured, he was catastrophically injured. Our other two co-workers were killed. We didn't think Ben would make it. We were in contact with the State Department and the DOD. There was nothing the United States could do that day. They said, until you can get him to Poland, there's nothing we can do. This is a war that's going on. We are there protecting the Ukrainians the best we can with weapons, but we cannot send bodies in there. So our job was to find someone, and we found a couple of angels to get Ben to the border. His story will be told, you know, countless times at some point, but he was able to get to the border. The United States was right there, ready to grab him. They put him on a C-17, got him to Landstuhl. There he underwent many, many surgeries. Then he came to BAMC, which is in San Antonio, where he has undergone many, many more surgeries. This man has been driven beyond belief by his 3 daughters and beautiful wife. And again, the U.S. government, really, again, you can look at Fox News, you can look at MSNBC, you can look at NBC, all of these things. At the end of the day, the U.S. government took Ben into their hands, and they rebuilt him, like Ben just talked about. They literally rebuilt this man. So hats off to everyone who comes together in war zones. You young journalists, you'll see once you get there, you know, it is a brotherhood. For all these things, you know, you have all these cable competition things, but at the end of the day, we're all in it together. You know, everyone was there for Ben, trying to find Ben. Everyone was there trying to find Pierre. Everyone was there trying to find Sasha. Again, hats off to everyone who does these jobs, but they are very difficult, and, you know, it was sort of an end of the innocence once we received this call. One thing that I did want to bring up, since we did mention Pierre. Pierre is one of the greatest co-workers and journalists, photojournalists, Fox News, or any outlet has ever seen. And so a year ago tomorrow, we awarded Ben this Unsung Hero Award. It's an internal award. And so I looked back and I had an email with Pierre, and I thought it would be perfect to end on, and good for all of you young journalists who are going to go into the field. So with that, this is from Pierre. I just said congratulations to him. Thanks, Jay. What a lovely surprise. Also, a big, massive respect to you and Fox News over the last few months for putting a huge amount of coordination, time, and resources to give a chance to our Afghan colleagues. I can't do my job without the help of our local fixers and staff in so many wonderful countries. Thanks for giving them the opportunity of a great life outside of Taliban Afghanistan. Keep smiling, and happy holidays, Pierre. We're going to have to do this for the Ukrainians. There'll be other wars to go, but this is something you'll want to remember to pay it forward to these fixers and the people on the ground that help us tell these stories. So congratulations. I know I'm sad over Ben, but Ben will be back here next year. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for those remarks. And I think on that note, we're going to wrap things up. We have a beautiful reception waiting for you on the ground floor, so up one floor. So let's continue the conversation and the celebration there. On behalf of the AFPC-USA, thank you for coming, and good night.